Hey everybody, it's Jasmine, your brow expert. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to show you a model that has, I believe, a very common shape that most of you have. I still shape brows at the Anastasia Beverly Hills Salon. I've been there for 25 years, so I must love it. Please come by if you're in the neighborhood to get your best brow and some tips along the way. And some of you have. It's been a pleasure meeting you. And thank you for trusting me with your eyebrows. So the model is going to be something that I know that a lot of you guys can relate with. I have an old brow tattoo, which if you scroll down on my main page, you can see a lot. You can see one of the videos that I've made that's a pro and con on microblading. So if you need to know a little bit more about that, check that out. I give you a little bit more information. So back to my eyebrows. I have to put concealer over that areas where there's tattoos. So the color on me, I always say this, is just gonna look dark and not as natural. Naturally, on an everyday basis, I will make my own brows natural, but I want you guys to visually see the tips that I'm giving you. But the model I'm gonna show you will have it definitely more natural, and I'm hoping that you can relate with her. So like I said, it's a very common brow that I shape on an everyday basis. I think I see this 1 or 2 times every single day. And part of it is because we might have over tweezed back in the day, or it's just our brow shape and you want it to be just a little fuller. I'm going to show you a couple of tricks, and I'm also going to show you how to make it last all day. This is another popular question I get. I get questions always on how do you make the powder or pencil, how do you make the brow product last all day? Well, in some ways, you're always going to see a little bit smudged off. It's depending on how oily you are, the kind of climate you live in. But if you take a few extra steps, put some time into it in the morning or whenever you apply the makeup, you will ensure that it'll just help last a longer time during the day. So invest in that time, and it won't even take that long once you get my tips. Okay, so without further ado, I will show you the model. You guys ready? So what's the most important brow area? Well, for this eyebrow, like I said, it's a very common brow shape. If you guys have this is definitely your video. If you know someone that has this brow shape, pass this along because I'm sure they could benefit. And I hope you're subscribing because this helps me to bring out content like this. Okay, so these brows, very, very common. It's also a very easy fix. If you just even do 1 or 2 things, it'll just change your whole brow shape. This is one, I'm just kind of drawing the eyebrow the way it is right now, just to over exaggerate visually as to what the brows are. And as you can see right here, it's kind of long, right? Now, longer brows are fine. It looks good on most of us, but when it's too long and too low, it just drags the eye down, and we all want a little bit of a lift, right? So by having the ends to be a tiny bit shorter will help. That's not the most important thing, but that certainly does help. So I'm just kind of showing that area to focus. We're going to focus on that. And I'm going to just in a second show you the most important area, but that is just something to keep in mind. I'm showing you the measurement because if you measure on the side, now you can't see the rest of her face, but it's the side of the nose right here. So if you hold up a pencil or a brush, the side of the nose and the corner of the eye, if you go straight up, you can see right here that the ends are too long, right? You could actually even make it a tiny bit shorter than that measurement, but this just ensures you how long the brows should be. Now, if you're not comfortable taking that little piece off, I would definitely suggest using some sort of concealer or highlighter and just rub over it, just to visually see if that is for you. So you don't have to commit right away, or if you just don't want to tweeze it at all, you can always put some sort of concealer over that as a make a routine, right? Okay, so, and right here I'm showing you that just by doing that, see, now notice how I'm just applying that concealer or the highlighter right at that end. It still works, right? She still has a brow end. I didn't make it too short, but just that tiny bit of adjustment makes a big difference. Now, that's the thing about eyebrows. A little goes a long way, but also makes the biggest impact in such a small area. Don't you agree? Anyway, so I'm going to just erase mine. I'm going to say erase because I don't have any hair down there, but just a tiny bit here. And I could already see, okay, well, this makes a little bit more sense for me. And it actually measures perfectly right here. Let me use the other side here, right here. See, at the corner of the eye, see that? Perfect, right? So always use that measure. It doesn't take more than a second just to reassure you that you're getting the right length. So here is the most important area. In that pocket, if you just even apply a tiny bit of color underneath that area, just makes a big difference. It not only kind of cuts too much of that round look, you also get it fuller, which is so important. And she probably had a lot of hair inside there to begin with back in the day, and she might have over tweezed. So in that area, she actually does have some hair in that pocket. It's just much finer. When it regrows as we age, it's not going to be as thick as the rest of her eyebrows, but just having a little bit is going to make a difference, especially after I wax and tweeze the eyebrows, which you will see in just a second. Now, I'm going to just use a little bit of powder just to give you an idea on my eyebrow. Just doing that, big difference, right? And if nothing else, I can just draw that little angle line and fill inside, and that could just be my brow routine right there. Here's the other important area. Even though the front lower area is the most important, the top here for her is actually very important as well, because the brows kind of do a little kind of curved downward look. So by having a little bit of an arch up at that corner, lifts up the brow more so. So it's important for her if she just does this little corner out here and then a tiny bit out there. So I'm just exaggerating mine so you can visually see that little area there. And how do you know where that arch is? It's always at the pinch of the nose, over the pupil, and I say in between the pupil and the iris, closer to the iris, so that way you get that angled arch area there. And here's that measurement right here. Now she's laying down, so it's a little off there, but that is where it's technically, but I brought it in a little further for her just to make it a little bit more realistic. I don't want to scare her and go, your eyebrow arch should be out here. So, and look at this. I've shaped the eyebrows underneath. The bottom part is, it doesn't look as the front top area, right? Looks already good. And so once it's shaped, that just makes a big difference too, right? If you go to someone that knows what they're doing, like myself. Okay, so the highlighter can be done before, after, during, whenever. I usually tell my clients to do it before. This is a Pro Pencil, it's an eyeshadow base that I used on her, but you can use a highlighter, whatever kind of light stick you have. If you do this first, if you notice by doing this, and look at hers, you can see a light kind of outline. So that's why I usually encourage my clients to do this first, because it aids into filling in your eyebrows. So just that little area, then you just know, well, I just have to do that little pocket there, right? So that's important, right? So that's the easy part. Now I'm going to use I always use the brush 18. Keep that in mind, because that is just, it cleans up any mess. So make sure you have a brush like this. If you need to buy any of these products, make sure you tap the screen, because I've tagged all of these products. So if you tap the screen, the product should pop up. This, I'm going to use this taupe. Now I'm using the powder taupe. She could probably get it with medium brown, but I'm using a lighter powder because we're going to layer a few products. So I just want the powder to be a background. Okay, so you don't want the color to show up that much, just a little bit. We're going to just, we're just going to say that I used a very light color too, but I'm using the medium brown. Actually, medium brown is light on me. I usually use ash brown. So see, you can see a hue of color there, right? Just very lightly, a tiny bit. And the reason why you don't want that much is because we're going to layer some products in that little pocket there. So but you want something in the background, because I'm going to use the brow pen, which I'll show you in just a second. And you don't want something so stark on a blank space. It's always a good idea to put a little bit of background color. And I find that powders can do that really, really easily. So, and again, if you just look at that little pocket right there for her, there's that little light background. So kind of important, but you don't have to. It's just a nice way of getting something more natural. Again, I'm sticking with a natural look. Typically, she would use a medium brown brow pen, I'm using the taupe because it's waterproof, right? So when it dries up, it's not going to go anywhere, which is perfect. I'm using the medium brown brow pen. I can actually use taupe as well just to get that background, but I want that wet-like surface right in that pocket. But as you can see, I'm also doing it right over that arched area and pretty much anywhere you see blank spaces. Even up in the front, I just do a tiny bit of lines and I'm barely touching my skin, you guys. If you accidentally touch too much and you get a blob, that's okay. The spoolie brush is perfect. Just comb over that and it tones it down. So very, very important. I find that doing something like this, a brow pen, especially in the areas where it's just all skin and no hair, you're going to find that that color is going to stay on beautifully all day. So very important. The reason why you did that background is so that way you kind of know where to apply this little pen. You don't need to go all the way in your eyebrows, but just in that little pocket, the most important area pocket, which is right there. And also just right at the arch, if you can just kind of put a tiny bit. Now, when I say tiny bit, I'm just using that little tip of the brush, that little tip, not the whole part of the pen. So that way you get that kind of fine line. Now I'm using a darker color on her. On me, it'll be the ash brown. Now this is when once you've done this and you've spoolied your brow pen, this is the final thing you want to do. Is you want to reapply the powder, but the actual color of your eyebrows. For her, it's the medium brown. Like I said earlier, for me, it's the ash brown. So I'm going to just use the ash brown powder on me and medium brown on her. This time I'm going on the darker side of the powder. If you guys haven't used our brow powder, you're gonna see that there's two shades. So the lighter side is always good for the front, the darker side is good for the end, or you can mix it back and forth to get a mid-tone. But in this case, since we've layered already with the brow pen, I'm gonna go ahead and use that darker side. On me, I'm just gonna stick to the mid-tone. Now this one, you can kind of see the light tone in there. When I say mid-tone, I mean just going back and forth with the brush. Then I get like a mid-tone color. Okay, so I'm going back, and this time I'm going right over that area, but also I'm just going over everywhere because I want that medium brown to really pack in there so that way it matches with her hair. And it just gives it a softer look. Powders always soften anything up. So that is a really good tip for you. Now you're gonna see on this video with the lighting that I have while I was doing her brows, it definitely seems a little bit lighter on the pen. You see that warmer taupe color, but in person, it blends in really well. But again, I just don't want the brows to be so dark, and the rest of her hair has a lot of highlights. So this actually kind of works. It blends in really nicely. So you just pack in, for me, it's just touching or packing in the ash brown. On her, it's the medium. So just, and mainly in that most important area, which is that little pocket right there. So that is important. So this is what I mean by there's going to be a few products to use, but if you invest in this look this way, I promise you it'll just last you all day. You won't even have to worry about it. The brush 18 is always handy, like I used earlier. I'm going to use it again. And at this point, you can actually reapply the highlighter if you like. You can reapply if you feel like you've gotten some areas a little too messy, but the brush 18 really just helps polish everything up. And I love using this, whether you think you've made a mistake or not. It's just a really good brush to use to just spread everything out and blend everything together on the eyelid, especially if you haven't done the eye makeup. This is also a great idea. And here I'm using the clear brow gel, which is very important for her. It's important for everybody, really. But as you can see, she's got wavy hair, and I didn't snip or cut her hair too short. I like that waviness, but it's kicking up the hair a little bit higher. I'm going back just to kind of reapply anything that, if I see too much of a gap, I get a little too much of a perfectionist and I go back here. But hopefully I won't have to do that again. But no, hopefully you don't have to do that again. Here's that before and after. Now, I want you to look at this. The top area is the before, of course. The middle is that shaping I did without any makeup. Makes such a big difference in the shaping. Now you still see that gap right there, but the the finished product, which is the makeup. Now, this is where, if anything else, like remember I said earlier, if nothing else, you just use some color right in here and that's all you need to do. That is something you have to, that's all you have to do too then. You don't need to put any color here. You don't need any color around here. If you just put color right in that pocket right here, you really made a big difference already. And if you haven't tried it, try it out. That only takes a couple of minutes. And I promise you, you're going to be like, it just made a big difference. So for that holiday season, you want that New Year's Eve party with the perfect eyebrow. This is something you would definitely want to do, especially if you're going to go dancing, you're going to sweat. You're going to need that brow pen. And you're going to need a little bit of that powder just to keep the product on well. And the brow gel is everything too, because it keeps everything nice and polished, keeps that hair combed looking. Now the gel has a little bit of fiber in it, so it actually creates a thicker look to the hairs. But my thing is always, you want to see the hair, especially when you have as much as she does, not that much on the bottom, but the rest she has a good amount. You want to see that hair combed up. It just looks pretty. And I think you would agree. So definitely try that out and let me know if you did. And thank you so much for joining me. I hope this tip helped you and anyone else that you know that can benefit from this tip. Please subscribe. This again helps me to just keep creating content and creating the best tips that I have for you. For the 25 years I've accumulated all the knowledge, and I know that you guys can benefit from. So thank you again. Give me a like if you like this video, and especially if you've gotten some tips out of it. And I will see you guys right back here. Thank you.